Okay, I think that's worked. I never know. I never know when it's live or not, but I think we are live. So, thank you very much for joining us today for the second live debate. The first one went so well that we decided to host the second one, and hopefully this one will be just as good. First off, I just want to say thank you to everyone last night who tuned in for the vaccine special. Really, really appreciate it. It's had some, well, it's been very well received and it's got some great feedback. So, again, really appreciate all of you guys that watched last night. The moderators performed very, very well, which I'm sure they will do again tonight. Let's hope and keep our fingers crossed this time that the chat doesn't crash like it did in the last debate, which was a shame because we'd lost it for about 40 minutes. And we only managed to get it back at the end. But we did manage to get a couple of questions in for the debaters, which was good. Another quick point. Apologies to anyone who has tried to contact me via Facebook over the last day or so. I have been temporarily blocked from doing anything on Facebook for 3 days. I don't know if you remember that video, the guy that agreed with me, and I showed a 5-second clip of some guys on a trampoline. Anyway, the people that own that one, the 5-second clip, they weren't very happy, so they dobbed me into Facebook, and I was banned for 3 days to anything. So I'm not being rude. If you're messaging me on Facebook, I cannot reply. Right, okay, so let's kick this off. So the format is going to be the same as last time. So each debater is going to get a 5-minute introduction. Then they are going to take it in turns to make their points. They're going to have 2 points each, and they're each going to be allowed to counter, and we'll develop the point as much as we can until I feel it's been developed enough, and we'll move on to the next point. Once the 2 points have been discussed, each, then we will take a couple of questions from the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. I'd like to ideally keep the debate itself to around an hour. I don't like to go too long on these things, but that's about it. The debaters know the rules. You guys know the rules. So let's start off. Nathan, you got 5 minutes for an intro. Ready?
Okay, great. Thank you. So again, thank you, Dan, for reaching out to me and inviting me to your channel to present what I know to be the truth about creation. Thank you, MCToon, for agreeing to this debate, and for Team Skeptic for managing the slide presentations for this debate. Thank you to all who are watching this live, and for those who will watch it later. Please do consider sharing this video to all your social media outlets. My name is Nathan Roberts, and I am a Christian who unashamedly preaches Jesus Christ and his gospel of the kingdom of God, as well as the one and only biblical account of creation, which is a stationary and flat earth with a dome firmament overhead. There are well over 200 Bible passages that confirm this scriptural truth and can be found when you open your Bible and research it. For the benefit of all, I have compiled all these passages on my website at flatearthdoctrine.com. In a day where most believe truth is subjective solely to one's own perspective, this debate proves otherwise. In fact, many atheists believe there is no absolute truth. Yet here we are today on an atheist YouTube channel with thousands of atheists watching a debate over the truth about the shape of the earth. According to science, there are now more than 2 genders, and the one you're born with may be incorrect. Now, children as young as 4 years old are being advised on how to alter their gender. None of these things should come as a surprise, as there will always be confusion until the creation rightly recognizes its creator, Jesus Christ. Many incorrectly believe this debate over the shape of the earth is only relevant to this physical world. Rather, this debate is more spiritual than physical. For those who believe in a spinning ball earth, which was first postulated by an occultist by the name of Pythagoras around 500 BC, in their mind, they justify that there is no God and believe they have established that their truth is just as relative as any other truth. They will say the definition of truth is that everyone's truth is just as valid as all others, and therein lies the contradiction. Hence this debate about the truth of the shape of the earth. I must warn those who are new to the discussion about the shape of the earth. There are many different voices in the so-called flat earth movement, some of which are true and others that are false. Many of those who believe in a flat earth know that the Flat Earth Society is a controlled opposition, with the mission of providing disinformation. For example, the Flat Earth Society postulates that the Earth is moving upward in order to create gravity. This is an asinine idea without any scientific or biblical foundation. Even more sinister are those who say they are not affiliated with the Flat Earth Society, yet use their very same exact logo, that being Robbie Davidson's organization called Celebrate Truth. Robbie Davidson is the founder and event organizer for the Flat Earth International Conference, and while I was a speaker at the 2018 conference in Denver, I have since parted ways after finding out many unsettling pieces of information. For instance, Robbie, a self-professing Christian, regularly promotes people on his platforms who consistently display to the public an anti-Christ spirit, who publicly promote urine drinking, who promote telepathic communication with animals, including Bigfoot, and, well, you should get the picture by now. At the conclusion of this debate, many will attempt to take sides over who won the debate. If an atheist declares a spinning ball as the truth, he has contradicted his premise that there is no absolute truth and will be forced to re-examine his entire belief system so that it is without contradiction. For he has firmly established that there is an absolute truth, that being a spinning ball earth. If a Christian declares his spinning ball earth as the truth, he too has contradicted his premise that the Bible is the inspired word from God. He too will have to re-examine his entire belief system unless he prefers to remain in his condition by calling God a liar. For those who do come to the realization, the truth of biblical cosmology, you will have to recognize Jesus Christ as your God, Savior, and Creator. You will be compelled to repent of your sin, meaning turn from it, and believe on Jesus Christ and allow the Holy Spirit to lead and guide you into all truth. In John chapter 8, verses 31 through 32, Jesus said to those which believed on him, "If ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Again, thank you for the opportunity to present the truth of Jesus's creation.
That's fantastic, Nathan. Thank you. Okay, MCToon, where you go? I think you might be muted. Are you muted, MCToon?
Yes, I was. I was trying to be muted, so I didn't interrupt. All right. Thank you, Dan, and for hosting. Thank you, Nathan, for joining, and Team Skeptic, for facilitating. So one thing that I see a lot is that people have some incorrect understanding about science. I've even heard some people say things like science is knowledge. It requires an observer and an experiment that if you haven't done so yourself to become the observer and done the experiment, science, knowledge, it hasn't occurred yet for you. I disagree. You don't need to do the experiment yourself. And this is well maintained in the scientific literature. There's many sources to look up to qualify what is science. And a nice reference I like to look at, you can look at whatever you want. There's quite a few, but you want to make sure it's a good scientific source, not just a non-scientific source. So Berkeley has a great one, and I'll pop it in the chat here, on misconceptions about science. And so I'm going to cover a few of those, and Team Skeptic, if you want the final group of slides there, the science-1 through 4 is what I'm going to be covering here. So one says science, the misconception is science is a collection of facts. And the correction is, because science classes sometimes revolve around dense textbooks, it's easy to think that's all there is to science. Facts in a textbook, but that's only part of the picture. Science is a body of knowledge, and one can learn about it in textbook, but it's also a process. And then I'm going to jump down to, yeah, that one's coming up there. That video is coming up next year. But the definition of a scientific theory, which is slide number 4 there, is in everyday language, the word theory is often used to mean a hunch with little evidential support. Scientific theories, on the other hand, are broad explanations for a wide range of phenomena. They're concise, coherent, systematic, and can be used to make predictions about many different sorts of situations. A theory is most acceptable to the scientific community when it's strongly supported by many different lines of evidence. But even theories may be modified or overturned if warranted by new evidence and perspectives. One more part thing is that there is no proof in science. So when you say, show me proof, or you haven't proved it, you're correct. Science doesn't do that. And then I'd like to finish with a video by Richard Feynman, who covers the essence of he's calling it a scientific law, but it's the essence of science in general. So I'll go ahead with that.
Now I'm going to discuss how we would look for a new law. In general, we look for a new law by the following process. First, we guess it. Then we well, don't laugh, that's really true. Then we compute the consequences of the guess to see what, if this is right, if this law that we guessed is right, we see what it would imply, and then we compare those computation results to nature, or we say compare to experiment or experience. Compare it directly with observation to see if it works. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
So I'm going to be using that as the basis of what I'm talking about today, and that is all I have for my introduction. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, MCToons. But that's it. Both of you were a bit shorter than when Conspiracy Cats and Nathan Thompson did their intros. I had to shut those two up, but you two are nicely on time. Okay, right. So let's kick off. Point number 1 for Nathan. Away you go.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll start with, my point is on the North Star, Polaris. And hopefully we can share my slide deck. Maybe you can scroll through it as I...
Yeah, if you'll just give me 1 second, Nathan, I'll get you loaded up, and just tell me when you're ready to advance to the next slide, okay?
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, you can start.
For that, or PDF file. It shows, it just gives a visual of the Big Dipper with Polaris, just so people can see.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, it started on slide 2. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, just so everyone knows, what we're talking about is Polaris, which, if you needed a reference point, you can see where it aligns with the Big Dipper, and it is center north. If you go to the next slide, please, I'll continue. Okay, so Polaris is the centermost visible fixed star over the north and has been reliable for navigation for thousands of years, including now and for the foreseeable future. You can go to the next slide. So this is a resource that I highly recommend to anyone who is truly interested in researching this topic. It's Zetetic Astronomy by Samuel Rowbotham, and the quotations from him, citations within the book. If the Earth is a sphere and the pole star hangs over the northern axis, it would be impossible to see it for a single degree beyond the equator, or 90 degrees from the pole. The line of sight would become a tangent to the sphere and consequently several thousand miles out of and divergent from the direction of the pole star. Many cases, however, are on record of the North Pole star being visible far beyond the equator, as far as even the Tropic of Capricorn. And again, that's from Dr. Samuel Rowbotham. He was a doctor. Again, book titled Earth, or rather Zetetic Astronomy, Earth is Not a Globe. If you can go to the next slide, please. Here's another reference, and this is from 100 Proofs The Earth is Not a Globe by William Carpenter. And this is proof number 71. And the astronomer's theory of a globular Earth necessitates the conclusion that If we travel south of the equator to see the North Star, it is an impossibility. Yet it is well known that the star has been seen by navigators when they have been more than 20 degrees south of the equator. This fact, like hundreds of others, puts the theory to shame and gives us a proof that the Earth is not a globe. Next slide, please. So this is a scripture for Christians out there. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1. Next slide, please. So other constellations that should never be seen from certain perspectives, but include Ursa Major, very close to Polaris, can be seen from 90 degrees north latitude and all the way down to 30 degrees south latitude. Taurus, Pisces, and Leo can be seen from 90 degrees north all the way to 65 degrees south. Aquarius and Libra can be seen from 65 degrees north to 90 degrees south. Virgo is visible from 80 degrees north down to 80 degrees south, and Orion can be seen from 85 degrees north all the way to 75 degrees south latitude. Now, regardless of tilt or inclination or even gravity, there is not a sound logical explanation for these common occurrences, everyday observations for anyone willing to open their eyes and truly observe for themselves from these reference points looking to the stars on a clear night. Next slide, please. So where is the time-lapse photography of the North Star south of the equator, even to as far as Capricorn? Next slide. Bill Nye, the science guy, tried to convince every young child that the reason we know the Earth is a ball or a globe is because we can watch ships go over the horizon. Nye, being looked to as an authority, most never challenged his notion. Then people started questioning their reality. Next, people chose to observe and test their reality, and with the assistance of the Nikon P900 and P1000 have come to realize Bill Nye is wrong. Those ships that we were told to be going over the alleged curvature of the Earth are now being pulled back into perspective with the assistance of high zoom lens cameras. While there are issues of refraction over water, it is never to the benefit of the observer. Those challenges can be overcome when taking footage during the coldest times of the year, when the temperature of the air over the water and on top of the water are a close match. Next slide, please. Once enough people started rediscovering this truth, the authorities had to once again change the rules, move the goalpost, so to speak. Now, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the curve of the Earth can't be found by anyone while viewing from ground level. This is yet another diversion and distraction from the obvious truth that the Earth is fixed, immovable, stationary, and flat with a dome overhead, just as the Lord Jesus Christ created and documented it to be. Flat Earth matters not for its, not metaphysical rather, but physical importance, but for its spiritual importance. Next slide, please. The Gospel of John begins by establishing who is the creator of everything, that being Jesus Christ. However, even most Christians deny Jesus as creator by rejecting his account of creation through the inspired words of his prophets, apostles, and disciples. And they will claim, I am misconstruing the over 200 Bible verses that prove a stationary and flat earth. Meanwhile, they are unable to provide any validity to their claim. Rarely are people motivated to challenge their own beliefs until someone else challenges them to do so, and that is happening right now. Next slide, please. Time-lapse photography of the North Star south of the equator, even to as far as Capricorn, will happen as soon as they begin challenging the reality as it has been presented to them, just as it was when Bill Nye told us we couldn't see the ships go over the horizon because of the curvature. In fact, there may be someone listening right now who is willing and able to take on that challenge. And if it is you, then do not stop until you get your answer. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you. Okay, MCToon, over to you.
Is this to be a response to that or my own point?
Yes. Yeah. So if you want to respond, then please do. If not, then make your first point. But I'm guessing you're going to respond.
Yes. So the the point of it being fixed is certainly not true. So I will start with that, and I do appreciate that you didn't say it was dead center, because that's pretty easy to see. So slide 20, please. The Nautical Almanac has the something that sailors have been using for a long time to plot out the stars in the sky and use for the navigation. So here is the Nautical Almanac from 1840 that includes the position of Polaris, which is called Ursa Minor Alpha, being 88 degrees, 27 minutes, 21.94 seconds off the center. It's right into the center is 90 degrees. So it's more than 1.5 degrees off in 1840. Slide 21, 1850, we can see it moved just 10 years later, 88 degrees, 30, and then we got 1900, 88 degrees, 46 minutes, and go to slide 23, move all the way up to 2017, where it's 89 degrees, 20.3 minutes, and I looked it up for today. Today it is well, less than a degree off. It's just over half a degree off the center. So it's constantly moving. It's not fixed. When you are on the Earth, I don't know why Robotham said that. Most of his stuff matched a little closer, but if you are on the Earth looking straight up at the North Pole and the North Celestial Pole and whatever's near it, you would totally see it all the time. That's absolutely predicted. So I don't know what that quote would be from Samuel Robotham. It doesn't make sense at all. So the claims that Samuel Robotham had about people seeing it south of the equator, you didn't provide any. You asked people instead to do it themselves. So I'm a little surprised you didn't actually bring any evidence, which I was hoping you'd have something. So I guess with what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So the North Star being visible south of the equator is unsupported there. So you're asking people to do it. Now, I think that's an interesting thing. Be sure, people, if you were to do that, you record the elevation that you're doing the recording from, because if it's anything more than from sea level, we expect to see differences, right? You went into a bunch of things about the curve, which wasn't the topic, so I'll leave that. If we want to rejoin that at a different debate, that'd be great. That's it. There really wasn't much to Polaris, so that's all I got on that.
Okay, thank you, MCToon. Nathan, do you want to have the last word on that one?
Yeah, sure.
In response to those points?
Yeah, sure. So one, those degree shifts are quite negligible in the grand scheme of things. So for all intensive purposes, it's fixed within its circuit. And even if looking at the flat Earth model, it's known that the sun and the moon, they have a circuit pattern that hover over the face of the Earth. And it is possible that there could be a slight minor deviation for even the stars. They could even have an oscillation pattern where it goes in and out over a much lengthier time period. But again, those figures that you provided were quite negligible. And I think it is interesting that you have the point to make it that you don't have to provide an experiment and be the observer in order for true science to occur. But I could have just provided any false documentation and it could have been supported by your premise that observation and experimentation are not required.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. MCToon, do you want to make your first point?
Sure. My point is on rotation. I'm going to start with Foucault's pendulum, a popular thing. It is something that's easy for anybody to do, and there are many of them all over the world that you can go see yourself. It's one of the oldest things that people used to directly identify rotation. It was things that they had only indirectly measured before. The way it works is you started swinging, and you want to have it not be in an oval at all. And so people typically, if they're doing it themselves, they'll use a string and then fire and then light the string so that the fire doesn't cause any angle when you release it. Over time, that straight line that's rotating, or you know, not rotating, going back and forth, right? It actually rotates then, and it rotates in a pattern that is relational to the latitude. It's actually the sine of the latitude. So at the poles, it rotates just under once a day, and at the equator, it doesn't rotate at all. And then south of the equator, it starts rotating again the other direction until you get to the South Pole. And they've done it at the South Pole Station as well. This sine type relationship is the type of thing that happens on an ellipse, on a circle, not on a flat surface. So it confirms the spinning Earth hypothesis. There are some flat Earth ideas on what causes it. A popular idea is that the flat Earth sun swishes through the ether, an unsupported hypothesis, causing the pendulum to move somehow. Unfortunately, the same idea about the sun suggests the sun travels in wider and narrower concentric circles. If this were the case, the amount of rotation would vary as the sun got closer or farther away. Additionally, the place where the rotation stopped would vary with the sun's movement. Instead, it's completely stationary. It's always at the equator, which is totally predicted by by a spinning Earth rotating. There are further problems. Some otherwise never heard of before force causing the rotation, right? Why would it vary with the sign of latitude? Sine and cosine functions are suggest a curving surface. The flat Earth idea does not match observations, therefore it is wrong. Second, weight changes based on latitude and movement. Now, the downward acceleration, typically called gravity, can be directly measured. People do this all the time. They have gravimeters. There's thousands and thousands of measurements you can look up yourself. If the Earth is spinning once a day, this force should vary with latitude. But the thing is, this is also affected by the distance to the center of the Earth's mass. And this mingled change we can control by measuring at similar elevations. We can also travel at a sufficiently high enough speed to greatly diminish or increase the net lateral speed. We can create a hypothesis for this effect, right? So we can do this right now. If the Earth is spinning about 1 revolution per day, objects weigh less because of centrifugal force in proportion to their lateral speed while at rest in relation to the surface of the Earth. If an object is moving against the direction of the Earth's spin, the net lateral speed will be reduced and the centrifugal force will be reduced, causing an increase in the object's weight. And the opposite then also, if an object is moving with the direction of the Earth's spin, the net lateral speed will be increased and the centrifugal force will be increased, causing a decrease in the object's weight. So Team Skeptic, this is going to be the ETVOS measured video. Wolfie did this with a 500-gram mass and a scale that measures to hundredths of a gram. I will put the link to this video that, yeah, there, go ahead with that. There's not much sound, so I can just talk over it. He's in a plane traveling east and traveling west. And you can see on the left, the weight is very close to 500 grams. And on the right, the weight is very close to 495 grams. It's the same weight. It's the same 500-gram mass, actually. And the weight is what's varying on these scales. So this is a nice plot showing the difference. Now, this is something anybody can do. You know, it might be difficult to bring a scale like this on a plane, but these types of scales are not too expensive, a 100th gram accuracy scale. So the video, this particular video, It's just a compilation of what Wolfie 6020 did, and I put both this one and Wolfie's video in the chat, and I'll have a web page when I'm done with all this with everything in it. So the mass averaged over 4 grams lighter when traveling eastward, which increases the lateral speed, thus the centrifugal force. This supports the hypothesis. All right, and now you can stop that one. Moving on to optical gyroscopes. Airplanes have inertial reference systems where they use multiple optical gyroscopes, either fiber optic or ring laser gyroscopes. And each of these three, they have 3 of them oriented in different planes so that they can get all 3 dimensions of the airplane's motion. And then typically large planes have more than one of these inertial reference systems. An important feature is their ability to measure the plane's current latitude. This is because the measured rotation of the Earth varies geometrically based on latitude. On the poles, a gyroscope set tangent to the surface measures the highest amount of rotation. At 30 degrees north or south, the rotation is 45 degrees, so it measures half what it did at the pole. And at the equator, the rotation is 90 degrees to the tangent, so it measures no rotation. This means a single level gyroscope measured in proportion to the sine function of the latitude, which we saw also with the Foucault pendulum. Gyroscope stood vertical to the surface of the Earth at the poles measure no spin. And then there's 2 ways that you could have it as you move it south. You can have the axis pointing north-south or east-west. The gyroscope pointing north-south will not measure rotation at all, anywhere. And the gyroscope set with this axis pointing east-west measured spin according to the cosine of the latitude. Now these 3 planes together are predicted for a rotating sphere. None of this makes sense on a flat Earth. So it's a very complicated topic, and I can't go into the details of all of that, but I will put a nice link if anybody wants to have a look at some discussions on an airplane forum about the very complicated details and some of this really cool stuff. Put that in there. Also include that on the webpage at the end. The big thing is that the combined rotation of the plane, of the IRS and the plane of all 3 axes together is 15 degrees, or just a bit under. And that's what Bob Nodell was identifying as well in his 15-degree drift quote. So I have a video, I won't play, but a video where an actual airplane pilot is messing with one, and he's telling it the wrong coordinates in an airplane, and it errors out because it knows its own latitude. It measured it, but the pilot fed it the wrong information, so it says, I must be in error, so it takes itself offline. So that is what I have on rotation.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Nathan, do you want to respond to any of that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the first thing I was curious, MCToon, is it cited what altitude that he was flying in both situations, and even maybe the temperatures involved? Any of these things, were all of these different variables documented?
The elevation of the plane would be regular airplane flying height. This is a regular commercial plane, but the video that had Wolfie's the original one that he did, you can look at that. I don't have the details at hand on that one. Okay,
because it would be important to know all those different elements, because they may not be a one-to-one relationship and could cause any slight.
Do you think that like temperature changes mass?
Well, all I'm suggesting is that understanding the elevation, the speed, temperature, like all these different variables in order to compare side by side are important when proving out a repeatable experiment. So that's all.
Okay.
The next thing that I was going to bring up is the Bob Nodell about the 15 degrees. If anything, what that proves from my perspective is that the top part of the Earth, the dome, the firmament, can, at least the elements within it, can move independently outside of the actual Earth. So I don't believe that that's Bob Nodell proved anything about the true rotation of the Earth. And it is interesting to me that the Foucault pendulum has to be first started by someone, implying that at the very least there is a God, someone who started the rotation, if it were even existent, which by all common sense measures, let's just think about this for a second. And this is from my book titled The Doctrine of the Shape of the Earth, Comprehensive Biblical Perspective. So I'll cite this from page 13 and 14. After 6 months of attempting to prove I was living on a globe-shaped Earth spinning on its axis at approximately 1,080 miles per hour, while orbiting the sun at a mean velocity of 66,600 miles per hour, while the solar system orbits around the Milky Way at approximately 420,000 miles per hour, while the Milky Way itself is whipping through the galaxy at a trajectory of approximately 2,237,000 miles per hour, I failed. Even when I tried to solve this mystery with a standard answer of gravity, much to my dismay, I realized gravity is simply a theory and not a fact. And while there may be one source that you found that said that it is a law, there are many other sources otherwise that state differently. So there's obviously contradiction there. For something to be a fact, it must be something that is indisputably the case, and gravity is not indisputable. If gravity were this amazing, powerful thing that makes you and everything else on the Earth stick to the Earth, how come you can watch smoke from a fire rise and a helium balloon float up? Shouldn't gravity be holding these things to the Earth? Why is it that you can watch a bee and a gnat effortlessly flying through the air, defying gravity and the rotation of the Earth? Has it achieved a zero gravity? The real answer to these phenomena is much more basic and simpler than you may even guess. The answer is density, buoyancy, and you may even have electromagnetism. So that is all I wanted to cover. Thank you.
Great. MCToon, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Well, again, gravity is off topic, so if you want, we could, talk about that at a different time. You did bring up the different orbits, and maybe you were referring to somehow that that the measurements should be different because of the orbits, and I'm not sure why you brought that up. Maybe that's it, maybe not. But the deal with the movement around the sun is that when you're measuring an angular velocity, that's a much smaller angular velocity around the sun than the Earth spinning, which is already pretty slow. So I would just add then that there is an experiment, this is a fantastic one, where they used a ring laser gyroscope to measure the Chandler and annual wobble of the Earth as predicted. And so they had a confirmation of the Chandler and annual wobble. I posted that in the link there. So the website, the web page is, and I'll fill it in here as we go, but it's just mctoon.net/rotation, and all of my citations will be in there. But I guess you didn't really have a whole lot of response to that, other than that the Foucault pendulum needs to be started, which yeah, it does. So fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much, guys. Two very well contested first points. Thank you. Just want to make a quick shout out to everyone in the chat who are posting the super chats. Thank you very much. Sorry, I can't respond to each one, but I just want to say thank you now because I know I'm missing quite a few. Brilliant. How many we got? 2,200. Wow, brilliant. Okay. Okay, Nathan, do you want to make your second point?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we'll go to the second one, which is so I just released a video titled 44 Government Documents Admit Flat Earth. And this is available from my website. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that if you go to flatearthdoctrine.com, and you click on the government admits flat earth, you'll be able to see not only the video embedded within that web page, but below that video are all the links that I discuss on this topic. Okay, so next slide. I'm not going to go through 44 documents here. I'm only going to focus on the ones that allegedly talk about rotation of the Earth and the Coriolis effect. And there's 4 documents that I want to hit on. In fact, these are ones where Sly Spokane even used and tried to prove that there is Coriolis and rotation of the Earth taken into account in these government documents. So the first one is a United States Army document, and it is titled "The Production of Firing Tables for Cannon Artillery." This is document number 40, and this was published in 1967. Okay, next slide, please. On page 10 of the document, which is 115 pages long, there is a reference to mean sea level. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, we'll go over the definition of sea level. The definition of sea level is the level of the surface of the sea's surface used in reckoning the height of geographical features such as hills and as a barometric standard. Next slide, please. So let's go over the definition of level. So level, it's a horizontal plane or line with respect to the distance above or below a given point, a position on a real or imaginary scale of amount, quantity, extent, or quality, having a flat and even surface without slopes or bumps, at the same height as someone or something else, give a flat and even surface to, and then we have begin to fly horizontally after climbing or diving. Next slide, please. So in this document, on page 22 and 34, it is cited the phrase rotation of Earth and the word, no, actually Coriolis is not, but the rotation of Earth is cited in here. It's cited 3 different times, pages 22 and 34. And however, the equation is based on a theory, the particle theory, and is not a proof for rotation of the Earth. For each of the 3 variables for the rotation of the Earth in the theoretical equation, anyone can look at this and analyze it for themselves. The number 0 can be plugged in without any negative impact to the entirety of the rest of the equation itself. Next slide, please. And if we look to page 40, or rather page 110 of 115 in document number 40 that I go over, we'll see that there's a chart there, and it spaces it out on a horizontal range in meters, going from 0 to 12,000. 12,000 meters is equivalent to 7.45 miles and is a 37-foot drop if the Earth is a ball, but the Earth curvature is not necessary for calculating ballistic artillery, apparently. Okay, so next slide, Government Admits Flat Earth, document number 41. This is titled Field Artillery Manual Cannon Gunnery, and it was put out in April 2016. Next slide. There we go. That's the one. So Field Artillery Manual Cannon Gunnery, April 2016, put out by the United States Army. Next slide, please. On page 175 of 664, it states that for standard conditions, optimal conditions, it is stated that there will be no rotation of the Earth. Now, if we go to the next slide, page 192 of this document, it states background theory of rotational effects. Again, the word theory is used there, and the definition of theory is a supposition or a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles and independent of the things to be explained. Some synonyms that are applied to this, this term theory would be hypotheses, theses, conjecture, supposition, speculation, postulation, postulate, proposition, premise, surmise, assumption, presumption, presupposition, notion, guess, hunch, feeling, and suspicion. And that is being attributed to the launching of artillery. That's quite irresponsible, in my opinion. If we go to the next slide, please. The M198 howitzer has a maximum range of about 14 miles. That would mean that there is a 130-foot drop from alleged Earth curvature that would go unaccounted. So why would that be? Doesn't make any sense. Let's go to the next slide, please. Government admits flat Earth document number 42. And this was put out in July of 2006. Next slide, please. So as a summary for this entirety of the document, there's concepts that are not discussed, and there's a concept that is discussed. Concepts that are not discussed in this document are Coriolis, rotation of the Earth, sphere, curvature, and motion of the Earth. Now, the concept discussed in this document is azimuth. Azimuth works only on a ground level flat plane without curvature. Next slide, please. Government admits flat Earth document number 43. TTP for the field artillery cannon gunnery. Next slide, please. And this is put out by the United States Marine Corps. Again, same thing. Concepts that are not discussed in this document include Coriolis, rotation of the Earth, sphere, curvature, and motion of the Earth. The concept that is discussed and disclosed in this document is azimuth. Again, flat ground plane, no curvature. Next document, number 44, titled Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures for the Field Artillery Manual Cannon Gunnery. This again is put out by the United States Marine Corps. Next slide, please. So the concepts that are discussed in this document include Coriolis and rotation of the Earth. However, it's also discussed in here that the optimal standard conditions do not include a rotation of the Earth. And I cite all the reference points for anyone to read those pages on where it's mentioned of Coriolis and rotation of the Earth. Next slide, please. So how do we reconcile the difference and apparent contradiction of whether or not rotation of the Earth, Coriolis, needs to be taken into account? Number one, other than the mention of the terms rotation of the Earth and Coriolis, there is absolutely no instruction in the document for how to account for the rotation of the Earth. Why is that? It discusses so many other topics to the nth degree, but it does not talk about that. Number two, the rotation of the Earth is a theory, other than it being in the equation, which you put a 0 in there and it has no effect. The rotation of the Earth is a theory, and just as in the equation cited in the U.S. Army document report number 1371 entitled The Production of Firing Tables for Cannon Artillery, it allows for the variable of alleged rotation of the Earth to be 0, leaving the entirety of the equation unaffected, and it is the same within this document produced by the United States Marine Corps. Next document, please. This is just for anyone who wanted to know, again, what I was citing in the prior slide. It's going back to this document right here, and it's document number 40, pages 22 and 34. Next slide, please. What is disclosed in this document, even though curvature and sphere is not taken into account, is azimuth. Again, a flat ground level plane where there is no curvature. And these are just 4 documents that I covered, 40, 41, 40, or rather, I guess did I go over 5? 40 through, yeah, so I went over, I think, 5 documents here. Right, did I start with 40? Yes, okay, and I ended with 44. So 40, 41, 42, 43, and 45. So 5 documents that I covered here, although there's 39 others that if you're interested in looking at them, I challenge anyone to do so. It's very eye-opening. I was able to go onto the Google search engine and find these documents. In fact, I even found a few others after I completed this video. So I'll be adding, as I find them, more documents to that webpage on my website at the very bottom so that anyone can look into it for themselves. Again, I think that the claim that it is not important for someone to be the observer and do the experiment themselves. Makes someone very blind and ignorant, and it makes them very easy to be persuaded to things that may not be true, may just be conjecture, may be just a supposition, a guess, a hunch. So that's why it is important to become the producer of the science, being you become the scientist, so to speak. You have to participate in science for it to be real. And I believe that's it.
Perfect. Thank you. MCToon? You're on mute again, buddy.
I'm muted again. I'm sorry. I write email filtering software. And because of that, there's a certain jargon in the industry. For example, the word ham. So if somebody wants to just look up and maybe pop it in the chat, the definition for the word ham, it's something that that we talk about a lot. But if you were to just take the definition from the dictionary for the word ham, you wouldn't understand at all what it is that we're talking about. In reality, it is a message that is wanted. It's the opposite of spam, which if you were also to look at the dictionary, you might think that it's some slimy meat product. In email, it's not. It's an email you don't want. So you don't get to redefine jargon from an industry. You need to take the correct definition. So going to the dictionary is typically the wrong place for a technical description. Example would be theory that I already covered, and it is not something proven. Correct. It is something that has a large amount of support. It's not just something to be waved off because it doesn't fit with your preconceptions. Also, in that same Berkeley document, there's the misconception that experiments are a necessary part of the scientific process. Without an experiment, a study is not rigorous or scientific. That's the misconception. The correction is, because the scientific method and popular portrayals of science emphasize experiments, many people think that science can't be done without an experiment. In fact, there are many ways to test almost any scientific idea. Experimentation is only one approach. Some ideas are best tested by setting up a controlled experiment in a lab, some by making detailed observations of the natural world, and some with a combination of strategies. To study detailed examples of how scientific ideas can be tested, they have a nice guide on there. I highly recommend people look at that Berkeley document for a good idea there. I do love that you brought these documents in Team Skeptic. I'm going to ask you to do slide 60 here. The production of firing tables for cannon artillery. So mean sea level would be industry jargon that you don't get to rename. You don't need to go to the dictionary. You can go to
MCToon. I'm
yes.
sorry, sir. There's only 55 pictures in that slide.
Okay, that was the addition that I sent you. Can I? I'll send them to you. Actually, if you can look at the Dropbox link, you could maybe pull up the new ones.
Yeah, I thought I downloaded the new one. Let me
60
go.
through 67, 670, 68. I could email them.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just let me see if I can.
Yeah, all right. Bear with me for a minute here. Sorry.
And you're looking for 60, right?
Yeah. So, there you go.
Is it the corrections for compensation for the rotation of the Earth?
Yeah, I sent that to...
Okay, I got it right here.
Oh, you have it? All right.
Yeah.
I sent it to everybody in that group there, so Nathan, you'll have them too. There you go. So I'll finish this point here. Mean sea level means within the industry is defined as the zero elevation for a local area. The zero surface referenced by elevation is called a vertical datum. You can look that up. The point is, you don't just go to the dictionary to see what the jargon is for an industry. I like that this document includes on page 22 the acceleration due to gravity. Thank you for bringing that in. These trajectories are for the calculation are for trajectories over land. So the topography of the land is the determining factor, not the mean sea level. It doesn't matter because what the mean sea level is, which is typically below the ground. What matters is the topography of the ground that you're going over. So if the mean sea level curves down, but you're shooting up a mountain, who cares about the mean sea level? It's just about the topography. Page 32 specifically, it talks about how to adjust for the rotation of the Earth. And the real key one is this this corrections to range. So that's the number 60. It is table H in this manual. We'll see if you get, there you go. And if you look, it says corrections for range in meters to compensate for the rotation of the Earth. At the bottom, it says latitude, that little chart at the bottom, latitude in degrees, 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 70, and then multiply by 0.98, 0.94, all the way down to 0.34. That is what you must do when you are firing, and you need to fix for rotation. So, and then go to the next one there. This is the correction to azimuth to compensate for the rotation of the Earth. And this is using 30 degrees north latitude as its base. So the document you brought in, the first one, has that very chart. I don't know if you didn't look at that, if you just kind of copied somebody else, but I'd suggest maybe next time looking a little deeper at what it is you're bringing in. So item 41 there, your field artillery manual for cannon gunnery, you talk about the standard conditions that has no rotation, but it also includes that there's no wind and that the propellant temp is 70 degrees and that the gun target are at the same altitude. All of these things are not true ever. Maybe it's 70 degrees, right? But typically it's not. So this is a way to have a baseline, and then what you do is you correct things. So let's look at 62, table 62. Again, it's the same type of image. It's correction to range in meters to compensate for the rotation of the Earth, and it has that similar chart at the bottom that you use to multiply. Right? So go to the next slide there. 63 shows you a great idea of topography. And you can see how it doesn't matter at all the rotation of the Earth when you're shooting up a hill there. Who cares? It's the elevation of your target. Right now, in this very book, number 64, it talks about the rotation of the Earth. So it has some nice diagrams. So slide 64. There you go, and then 65, just these North Pole and South Pole are different directions of I don't know why you brought it in, man. It's like this is what I was going to bring in, so I appreciate that. Yeah, why does a howitzer not take into account when it can shoot that far? Again, it's topography. It doesn't matter what the curve is. It matters where the actual target is in the topography. So. And you talked about for your document 42 and 43, talking about, it didn't really have much in it, but it talked about azimuth, and that azimuth proves something. So I'm going to ask that you provide a citation for what it is proving, because you just made a claim with no evidence, so it gets dismissed with no evidence. Item 44 really is about the same thing. The tactics, techniques, and procedures for field artillery manual cannon gunnery. Again, the standard conditions have an even more expanded list. The air temperature is 59 degrees. The air density is 1,225 grams per cubic meter. There's no wind. The gun target and MDP are at the same altitude. You have accurate range. You have no rotation of the Earth. You have standard weapon, projectile, and fuse. The propellant temp is 70 degrees. And no drift, right? All of these things are are your standard. Then what you do is, in this very manual that I think you didn't look at, it goes over what you do to fix things to have a better accuracy, right? And for this item 44, you claim there's no instructions on how to correct for rotation. However, table, it's always table H in these, so it's slide 67. So again, this is your book that you say there is no instructions on how to correct for rotation. A couple more ahead there. Next one. There you go. Again, correction to range in meters to compensate for the Earth, for the rotation of the Earth, and it has that same table at the bottom. So you said there's no instructions on what to do, but there are instructions. You can pop up to table to 68 as well if you want. So again, I'm going to ask that you provide some evidence for what azimuth proves exactly. But I do appreciate that you brought all of these documents in, because they all do support Coriolis being something. And as we see on the screen right now, it is a table that they have to use when they're shooting long range. You said one more thing, that putting a 0 in doesn't change the equation. I don't know. I don't know why you said that, because it's an additive, right? It's adding, and so it certainly would change the equation. I don't know if you looked at the equation. Maybe you don't have much of a math background, and I can't blame you for that if it's not your thing to just say maybe what somebody else said. I don't know, but it certainly would change the equation. So thank you to Ron Sheckelson, who I debated last Tuesday, who pointed out your video to me. So thank you, Ron. And that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Nathan, do you want to respond?
Yeah, sure. Again, so so first going to the words. If you can please provide me the definition that proves it doesn't have to be now, but as you're asking me for a citation for this azimuth, I guess it's probably appropriate also for you to show me and provide a proof, which I ask this to anyone really, that proves that the word level does not mean level, it means curval. Any documentation would be helpful on that. Also, something that redefines what non-rotation is would be awesome as well, because in all these documents, at least the 39 before it, where there's many of them are talking about air flight and helicopters over the Earth, lasers over the Earth. It's talking about a flat, non-rotating Earth. That includes for a Blackbird SR-71, which has a top speed of 2,193 miles per hour, where it explicitly states that there's no rotation of the Earth. And so I would challenge anyone to look at those documents in more detail. Again, the charts and tables are based on a theory. And again, going back to the equation, when I said that it doesn't change how it impacts the rest of the equation, what I was saying is that when the number 0 is plugged in, it leaves the rest of the equation unaffected, meaning it can still go on and compute. So you can just continue to plug in 0 for those variables of rotation of Earth, which is a theory, and it has no bearing. So I think that were the main things I wanted to. Oh yeah, no, I think that was it. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to our final point from MCToon. Where you go?
All right, so let me get to the right spot here. My topic is the sunrise and sunset predictions for a flat and spherical Earth. So I have slide 1, which is the flat Earth predictions for sunrise and sunset direction from Eastern Australia. I actually used a very convenient location there in Eastern Australia of right on the intersecting lines there of -150 and 30. Sorry, positive. It's 150 east and 30 south. So you can see there that on the December 21st, these are the observed, or say the predicted flat Earth position of the sun at sunset and sunrise. The observed time for sunrise was 5:55 a.m. Sunset was 8 p.m. So the sun was visible for just over 14 hours. So I placed the sun for sunrise and sunset at the appropriate place. And the angles then we can see are 53 degrees north of due east for the sunrise and 53 degrees north of due west for the sunset. So a significant portion there. So that's the flat Earth prediction. So we can go to slide 2 to see how I developed the experiment I did to predict the globe Earth angle for the sunrise and sunset at the same position. I just did the sunrise in this case because it's symmetrical. The sunset's going to just be the opposite. And then you can go to slide 3. I put a little piece of Play-Doh and a straightened paper clip, and you can see there with the stand-in sun right on the terminator line, the direction of the light is coming straight like that towards the right. And then that bottom right picture there, I measured the angle off of south of due east as 27.5 degrees. So we can go to slide 4. So now we can put in the observed, right? In in Eastern Australia, suncalc.net, you can just go in and look at the actual observed date. And then you can also question people who live in the Southern Hemisphere. There's 800 million of them. And if there's any in the chat, maybe you can say whether or not this type of observation matches your observation. Do you see the sun rise south of due east in the winter? In our winter, in your summer. Just to confirm, right? So this is saying that the observed sunrise was 28 degrees south of due east, or 28 degrees southeast. So we can go to slide 5. And we can see the flat Earth prediction is 81 degrees away from the observation. There's nothing to account for this discrepancy. All right, next slide. The globe prediction, my crude prediction, is 1/2 degree off of observation. The measurement error of my crude model can account for this discrepancy. Therefore, our hypothesis that the flat Earth angle is 53 degrees is wrong, and the globe Earth prediction is supported. So, as according to Dr. Feynman, in that nice video, we can just dismiss the flat Earth idea, a prediction that at least using this map, right? So the problem is, of course, any other map you want to use and you put the North Pole in the middle, you're kind of bound by where you got to put things because we can measure latitude and longitude just by the sun position and the star position. And it's been done for, in astronomy, it's done for navigation for centuries. So people don't have much choice on where you're going to put the continents, right? If you're going to put the North Pole in the middle, then the AE map is pretty much all you can do. So we got that. Now we've got in Quito. So there's a video called Quito Equinox. You want to play that one. On the equator, on the day of the equinox, the sun rises, and if you can play that at a faster speed, that'd be better, or just pop up a little bit to the middle. On the equator, the sun rises due east, sets due west, and it traces a straight line through the sky the entire day. It's totally straight. This is seen everywhere on the equator. Every point on the equator has the same experience. It's a straight line through the sky. This demands that the equator is straight, that it doesn't curve east and west, or sorry, it doesn't curve north to south. It's a straight east-west line. So the AE map, again, cannot work. So with that, I'll finish with that then.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nathan?
Yeah, sure. So the intention of the AE map is not to prove the motion of the sun. In fact, what it is intended to do is give a pictorial understanding, given that there is no accounted curvature to the Earth, of what it would look like if it was laid out flat. So the operation of the sun is not dependent upon the Earth being flat. So because the models that you've been given on allegedly showing how the sun work over a flat Earth are incorrect, does not invalidate the curvature of the Earth. They're completely independent of each other. And at best, both the globular model and the flat Earth model that you suggested as the motion of the sun overhead are theories at best as far as the way that it works out. For one to say that they know definitively how the sun operates without ever being there, going to it, it's just a theory. All we can do is observe from our vantage point and take notes. But does that mean that we know exactly how it works? No, it does not. But what we can be certain of is the ground underneath our feet, and that water always seeks to find its level. So again, I understand that's not on topic with this, but again, how you merge the two to make them one, that was very unfair. That's it.
Anything, do you want to say anything back to that, MCToon? Unmute as well.
All right, back on off mute. I appreciate that you didn't really have much of a rebuttal. That you didn't. You once again misconstrued what is a theory. You said just a theory. You don't actually, I think, have an idea what a scientific theory is. You should probably look that up. You're just copying people, and it's incorrect. It's just plain incorrect. It's kind of an insult to people that actually do these types of things. If you don't have a map, what do you have? It seems like it's kind of a you have nothing. So that's all I got.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. That was really, I've got to say, it was a very well contested and well timed debate, and also the level of respect shown from both of you was very complimentary as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to take a couple of questions from the chat now. So let's just give them a second to catch up, and I'll take questions first for Nathan. So anyone got a question for Nathan? I'll choose one of the first that I see come through, and we'll give them a couple of questions each. Pertinent questions as well, please.
Hey, while we're waiting for that, so MCToon, you do believe yourself to be a Bible-believing Christian, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
I actually called up a friend of mine, my college roommate, who I went to a state school, but he went on to be a pastor, and now has moved on from that, and he's a professional theologian. He presents papers to, I don't know, he goes to conferences and presents papers and stuff. And I called him up and talked to him for a while, and we had a nice conversation, and I asked him, his thoughts on this, and he went on quite a bit about the mindset of the first century Jew in ancient Near East and all of these things. And he's like, no, you have to understand what they're thinking. So in the end, it's a difference of opinion. There are different people have different interpretations. And so when you take your interpretation, it's nothing more than a claim, and we can then go test.
Okay, guys, I'm going to butt in there. Okay, so Nathan, we've got a question here from a guy called Call of the Void. Why can't we see the Southern Cross in the north?
Oh, again, and I know that most people who have researched into this, they're going to mock and scoff at the concept of perspective and vantage points, but that's what it comes to. It's an understanding of a convergence of the perspective looking out into the horizon. You have a convergence where it basically goes into a line if it's too far out. So that's it. It's just a convergence of the top and the bottom, and you cannot see to a certain extent.
Okay. Right. Anyone got a question for MCToon? I thought I saw one, but I think I missed it somehow. Come on, guys. You've got to have a question for MCToon, surely. It seems that you're the most popular person to be asked a question, Nathan.
Well, how about MCToon? How about you give maybe your response, maybe to the same question, if you want.
Yeah, I mean,
why can't you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so perspective, fortunately, is something that we can calculate. It's not that difficult. When you go outside and you see a tree that's 100 feet tall, and or you don't know how tall it is, let's say, and you move 100 feet away, and you take out your angelometer here, right, and you measure it, and you find, oh, it's 45 degrees, and I'm 100 feet away, and you can find out, oh, well, that's a 100-foot tall tree. Triangulation works. So if you know, for example, that something, or you think that something is 3,000 miles up and 6,000 miles away, you can calculate the predicted angle. So, and if you don't find that thing there, then something's wrong with the idea, with the theory behind it. So since we can't see the Southern Cross from the Northern Hemisphere, if it's flat, it doesn't make sense. Perspective doesn't actually answer that.
What doesn't make sense for sure is that if you're standing on a ball and the horizon basically meets the eye level at no matter what altitude you go to, near eye level, not exact, but near it, that doesn't make sense on a ball either.
Well, the nice thing is that the drop in the horizon matches very close to the predicted globe model. And you can actually see this on slide 26. Where it drops. Now, these are not measured. These are just identifying whether or not.
Well, just so you know, whatever you put forth, Neil deGrasse Tyson, you'd have to have a debate with him because he said it doesn't matter how high up you go, unless you're basically at NASA altitude, you're not going to see the curve.
And we're talking horizon, so that's a different topic. Plus, Neil isn't here, and I'd be willing to have a conversation with him. And maybe we could get some clarity
he's ignored all my emails as well. He ignored my emails. Right. MCToon. Question here from Iron 26. Why not account for drop and rotation in artillery?
Because topography is what matters. The certainly drop matters when you measure the topography and find that your destination, your target is 1,000 meters down range and 20 meters lower or 20 meters higher, then that's what matters, and you absolutely do account for drop. But the curvature of the Earth doesn't matter at that point because the topography completely diminishes any of that, any of the rest of that.
Okay, cool. Okay, we've got one more question here from Jack Smith. Sorry.
I have to say that doesn't make any sense because you have to have a mean baseline. So if there is obviously a valley or a hill that the artillery has to meet to, you would have to take a baseline of what it is. In which case, whether it was a valley or a hill that you were encountering, you'd have to account for that drop. from the baseline.
Yep. Topography is it.
Okay. Yes.
And
One more question. Sorry, Nathan. One more question from a Jack Smith, and it's a question for you. Can you explain the weird shape of Australia on the flat Earth map?
No, I can't.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah, very good. Okay. Again, guys, really appreciate you both coming on. I'm gonna call it a day here because it's gone on for about an hour 20, which is just about right, I think. So MCToon, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Same to you, Nathan. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for giving us your time to do this. Everyone in the chat, thank you very much for all your comments. Thank you for your super chats and any questions I missed. I am sorry. Okay. So I think the next one we've got coming up is at the end of the month, but I'll give more details on that soon. But other than that, thank you very much for watching as usual. And I guess I'll see you all on Tuesday. Yeah, I'll see you on Tuesday. So again, Nathan, thank you very much. MCToon, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.